so the breeze is getting up, so we've got to crack on. Anyway, we're doing a bit of thinning, and this tree here I thought I could use as a prime example for showing a split level cut. This is where you've got the weight slightly leaning back to the direction you intend to send the tree, and so therefore you have to get your felling lever in the back or a wedge before you complete the cut. And it's a small tree, so unlike a medium tree where you'll be sweeping round putting wedges in as you went, it's a small tree, there isn't room. First thing of course is the sink cut, or the gob, or whatever you want to call it, yeah, or the wedge, and the angle of that between the horizontal and the angled cut can vary depending on what you want the tree to do. If you do a very narrow cut, sort of, I don't know, 30 degrees, then as the tree goes over, the sink cut will close and the hinge will break. So you can get the hinge to break prematurely if you're felling over an object or something like that. Or if you're felling on a hill, you might want the hinge to retain, and so therefore you do a really wide one, like, I don't know, 70 degrees or something ridiculous like that. But of course, the wider the sink cut, the higher up the tree you start. Yeah. So I've got a little trick here where you offer the saw up to, or the bar up to the tree, and where the top of the bar matches the tree, that's where you start cutting. It's a really rough rule of thumb, but it works for me. And of course, if you get the sink about right, then it's less cutting than if you start higher up the tree and go cutting down for like 5 or 6 inches. So let's just crack on with that for a minute, and then we'll continue. So there you go, a relatively small sink cut. And of course the old rule is the guy in the pub with the big gob always gets in trouble, and if you put a really big sink cut in, it reduces your options quite dramatically. If you've got a small one like that and you're facing in a slightly different direction, you can then recut it one side or the other. Yeah, just so that you change the angle. I'll just give you an example of that. That's the angle. So if you wanted to change it, you could just cut that corner off down to there, for instance, and that would bring the tree round that way a bit. But I think that'll do. I think it's going to get hung up anyway. So the next thing to do is, let me bring the camera around. So the next thing to do is you want to be about 2/3 of the way across the tree and go like that. And you want to be about 1 inch above the sink cut. So the sink cut is about there. So we want to be about there. You don't want to be any more than 1 inch. If you have that step a reasonable size, then you do tend to get a little bit more leverage. Right, so let's just do that. Noise alert. So when I was doing that, I was stood here, so my right eye was in line with the sink cut, and I was holding, I'll move back, and I was holding the saw like that. Can we see? Yes, we can. So that hand was there, and the thumb was on the throttle. If you try your finger on the throttle, you twist the saw. So nicely balanced saw and level, and then literally you just cut like that. Okay, so therefore you need to be parallel with that sink cut so that you're standing in the right place, so you end up cutting correctly. Okay, next thing. So the next thing is we put the felling lever in there. And if you've got a Pico chain, that's a 3/8 Pico, you might have to make that cut just slightly wider in one place to get your bar all the way in. Right, now then, what we want to do is that. So we don't go in the same cut, we want to go at a slight angle. Okay, and again it is hand right in that angle and thumb on the throttle, and I'll just pull back, and we literally, I'm rocking on my knees, and you just cut like that. You don't move, you don't push the saw, you're holding the saw with the bar, it is level across like that. Okay, you'll see. So there you go. I didn't hit the bar hasn't been undercut, so therefore there is still plenty of leverage there. And let me just move the saw, the camera around, and of course because you're cutting at an angle, it ends to be slightly higher. So you've got to be very careful not to cut too far, and I might have cut a little bit too far there, because if you take that line of that sink cut, oh, it's not too bad, we've probably got an inch of hinge. Right, let's send this over. And it's hung up, but can you see there, you just wait, and then you have the control. And there we go, you see, there's the angle cut, there's the flush cut, and there's no pin in the middle, and there's a hinge all the way across. It's a matter of where you stand and how you hold the saw. I just want to add a little bit more in here about the split level cut. Now you imagine that this is the horizontal cut and my knuckle is the outside of the tree. Well, that's what you're looking for, so that that knuckle and that knuckle, or the edge of the tree, are in line. That way, if you need to deal with a hung up tree and remove some of the hinge, it's not an impediment. And also, it's not a trip hazard. I've seen quite frequently people do that, which is sort of fine because it does the job. You get underneath the felling lever, but then you've got this great big chunk standing upright, and if you need to deal with a hung up tree and you want to spin it that way, then this is in the way, and you know, trainees don't understand that they've got to hack that out of the way before they can spin the tree round like that. So therefore, if you bring the saw down so that both edges of the cut, as it were, are level, then it makes life easier, which is why that's the way I did it. Your saw is at about 20 degrees instead of about 45 degrees. Yeah, just hopefully that clarifies that. So there you go, we got a hung up tree. I'm not in the danger zone, I'm close to it, and I've got videos about hung up tree. They were quite a long time ago, but they're well worth watching again because it goes into great detail. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. Comments please as appropriate, and I will catch up with you very soon. Cheers for now.